sure, there are trans individuals who had their sex assigned at birth by some doctor that's never known them before and accepted by people who just assumed they knew what's best for you, and then followed along by a whole bunch of office administrators, right? Stamping papers and typing things in keyboards, going ahead and assigning a gender identity to someone who never even managed to have a voice in things, let alone having a voice, period. And then ultimately saying, no, my gender identity is not aligned with my sex assigned at birth. Thanks for that, by the way, everybody. Hello, fellers and dwellers. Welcome to Dwell On It. This is a series where I, Taylor, answer your questions based on my lived experience as a trans woman. If you'd like to include questions of your own for a future episode, please make sure to send them by comments or by DMs. What happens is those questions that I receive, I put on note cards, throw them in a grab bag, pull them out randomly, and create a small episode out of it. So as I mentioned, please make sure to get yourself engaged if you would like. Otherwise, please sit back, enjoy some laughs, and hopefully some learning. And before we get into the questions, I always like to begin every episode with a visual description ever since I learned its importance. And typically that is for two things that I can think of off the top of my head. One, you've got people who are listening to this, whether it's a YouTube tab that's open, or perhaps if I get this into a podcast style format, I want to make sure they have a visualization of what's going on here. And then there's also people who have visual impairments, and this helps them as well too. And so I am a 6'1" white transgender woman. I am sitting in my living room, which is also my gym and my office. As I say quite regularly, often enough, behind me I've got some pieces of cardio equipment. We can see the elliptical and a recumbent bike. Just behind me is a treadmill, which we can see the handle of. There's a mirror on the wall as well. Beige walls as well too. It's a cloudy, rainy day. The blinds are open. It's midday, so it's not a lot of sunlight coming in from the outside, but it's there. There's a pink flower thing as well on top of my window blind thing as well. I have no idea what flower that is. And there's an air conditioner behind me. Myself personally, as I mentioned, I am a 6'1" transgender woman. I've got long straightened blonde hair that's swept over the left side of my face. It's down past my armpits, and on the right side of my face underneath my right eye are small, medium, and large 3 dermal piercings going outwards towards a cluster earring at the top of my right ear. I've got 2 stud piercings. I have a nose piercing. My makeup palette is based on purple, and I've got a very basic chain that I've never taken off still. I've got my glasses that I'm wearing right now, and I'll explain a little stratego in a second about that, but they're a light tortoiseshell cat's eye frame, and I am wearing a gray, white, like it's white base heathered sweater with a black t-shirt underneath. And going back to the glasses, I know we can see the ring light reflecting off them. That's a little bit of stratego because I definitely know that right at the tear ducts on the outside of my eyes, I know I feel I'm acting up, so I'm pretty much using the glare to hide them fully intentionally. So if that's annoying, it's sorry. As I mentioned, I'm a transgender woman. I use she, her pronouns. I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is Treaty 1 territory. Let's get ourselves straight into this episode. Let me move my hair out of the way before it gets too wild, and let's see what this episode of Dwell On It has in store for us. Do you wish you transitioned earlier? Why or why not? I'm going to point immediately to here. There's going to be a video there, which is also going to be a link in the description. I don't know which of the episodes I'm going to use for that because I have touched on it. I don't wish I transitioned earlier for the simple fact that I wouldn't be who I am today without being who I've been. Even up to the seconds leading up to me recording this episode, who I've been, the life that I've been part of, creates the person who I am today and continues to make the person that I will be ongoing. So I don't wish that I transitioned earlier. What I can say is I wish I had the courage earlier to come out. And if not having the courage, I certainly wish that our world would have at least given me hints and suggestions that it would have been okay. So I don't regret not transitioning any earlier than the time that I started, but I absolutely would have enjoyed having the courage to come out because I'm more than happy living as authentic as I am now. I can imagine confidently that I would be echoing those same sentiments in an earlier time. However, going back to that same episode that I realized that I'm going to be linking now. As a matter of fact, I'm going to link both. So there's going to be another episode right here, which is going to be the sequel, the answer to the first video. I'm going to link them both together because I kind of explained that story in full, and I'd love everyone who hasn't had a chance to check it out yet to please do. I wouldn't be who I am without who I was. I would have enjoyed the opportunity to not live in as much fear, but I'm not going to regret not taking that step, going back to the first point. I know I'm kind of scrambling all over these, but I feel that both of those questions earlier went into fantastic in-depthness about that, and so I'd really love everybody to have a chance to check both of those episodes out as well. How much do you share in common with other trans people? Do you share anything in common with other LGBTQ people too? That's loaded. I can be very petty by saying that we're all human, but at the same time, that's pretty accurate. Remember that trans individuals aren't like a different species or anything like that. Trans individuals are a percentage of the human population, just the same as people who are people of color are a percentage of a population. People who are left-handed are a percentage of a population. People who have disabilities are a percentage of a population, and so on. Go to any person of color and ask them if they share anything in common with other people of color. Or go ahead and ask, those same questions to any of those other groups. So sure, I probably do. And I also share a lot of things in common with cis people. If you want me to throw down a technical answer, first, when it comes to being trans, I'm not going to get all transmedicalist on things. Gender identity and gender expression are all part of, being a trans individual. As a matter of fact, I'm going to link another episode right here. One of the first questions that I answered in last week's episode, the first question, thinking of it, diversity within diversity. And it's just the exact same thing when it comes to asking, as I just mentioned, those other groups. If you want me to give a very, pointed, borderline petty answer, sure, there are trans individuals who had their sex assigned at birth by some doctor that's never known them before and accepted by people who just assumed they knew what's best for you, and then followed along by a whole bunch of office administrators, right? Stamping papers and typing things in keyboards, going ahead and assigning a gender identity to someone who never even managed to have a voice in things, let alone having a voice, period. And then ultimately saying, no, my gender identity is not aligned with my sex assigned at birth. Thanks for that, by the way, everybody. So sure, I share that in common with many trans people. We are not a different type of human being. We are a percentage of the population. What does a trans person have in common with you? And when it comes to the rest of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, I can expand on that in terms of what's being common, the oppression put down on everybody who is not a cisgender, heteronormative, typically white, typically male individual. The oppressions that the 2S LGBTQIA+ community experience is all rooted from the same place. Comes from the colonialism and all the fascism and everything else that I've mentioned before. So that's a very common thing that is easy to just umbrella. Yeah, we're not cisgender, heteronormative, typically white, typically male, typically without a disability group of people who are all getting pushed aside by the social norms. Would you like to be famous? And in what way? It's funny, I'm a super introvert. I say often enough, I'm an INFJ personality type. I don't use that as the treat me like an INFJ, but I'm telling you I'm an INFJ personality type if you want to get to know me better sort of thing. So it's funny saying this, but I always wanted to be like the lead singer of like a rock band or something when I was younger. I wanted to be a wrestler and so on. So I really liked those ideas of performing, but I never really had this concept of making it to the bigs. Even the same when it comes to something like sports, to just use it as an example. I feel very confidently that if I had a fair shake in terms of playing sports when I was younger, I wouldn't be surprised if I would have gotten to a professional level, especially in something like baseball or softball or whatever. But I never ever dreamed of being, you know, the top shelf accolades and this and that and the person that everyone's going to remember and so on and so on and so on, there was a part of my life where, you know, I didn't even want to exist, let alone be famous, so take that for what it's worth. But I've always felt that if I'm going to do something, I want to do something in an impactful way. If a consequence of that is fame, then sure, it just comes with the territory, but I absolutely am not focused on the glitz and glam and the name notoriety and whatever. That's certainly not in my to-do list. But if what I'm working on, whatever it is, brings me to that level of getting recognized, for sure. Let's put it this way. It's been just over 1 year that I was on CBC The National. I'll put this as a link right here too, while I'm at it. And actually, the link that I'm going to use is going to be a recent episode of Dwell On It instead of the episode itself, because in the description of that episode are links to the episode itself of Face to Face. But I was on CBC The National. I was on national television. I wasn't even socially full-time for a year yet, all things considered, but I was addressing bigotry and transphobia to a federal party leader. That's kind of cool. I wouldn't say that's famous, but it's things like that where if advocacy and just standing up for what's right take me to a national stage, I will walk on a national stage. But I'm certainly not going out of my way to be like, I need to get here, I need to get here, people need to know my name, and however it goes. So that's kind of a fun question, but like I said, make sure to take a look at that episode I mentioned earlier. It's going to be a recent episode that is going to be a review of the review that CBC's ombudsman provided after I expressed concerns about my appearance because of the presentation that CBC did, which they really flubbed. Do you treat yourself with anything specifically because you're trans? Not gonna lie, that took a few takes to read that for some reason. No. Kind of. In a past life, I never really treated myself because I just felt like it was, well, I was presenting a pretty cishet, vanilla, you know, 6'1", white Canadian athletic male, just a dude. So there's nothing that I needed to get treated with, right? Let's put it this way. Remember that visual description? See my beige wall with absolutely nothing on it but a mirror? That mirror I got at a thrift store, I think for $3, and I wasn't looking for a mirror, I was just walking past it. And then what's on the wall? See, there's no art, no graphic, no plants, that's me, right? I say tongue-in-cheek that I'm the type of person where I'll be more than happy to just have a pork chop with salt and pepper on it, even if I've got barbecue sauce or whatever in the fridge. I'm just that type of person. Now granted, that said, since we're going to talk about food, if someone's going to make me food and put sauce on a pork chop, I will still eat it. I just don't go out of my way for those extra things. I've never treated myself like that. I get things as necessities, and when I am getting myself something, I want to make sure that what I'm purchasing is valuable. So a really good example, the mic that I'm using, because way back when I was using a headset mic on some old headphones and it sounded like junk. I could have bought whatever microphone I wanted, but I knew if I was going to be investing in a mic, I wanted to get a good value out of it. But I bought the mic not as a treat, but as a necessity. So same sort of thing. That's just part of my personality. That's never just automatically changed. What I do know is that ever since I came out, and started to live a lot more authentically, I've been a lot happier and have allowed myself to no longer feel guilty about getting something if I want it. And what I mean by that, I mentioned in a previous episode, I'm not going to link this one because I think I'm running out of hot links already, but like, my wardrobe is way larger than it needs to be. None of that was ever a treat, but I'm like, you know what? I'm living a happy life now. You're allowed to have these things and not feel guilty about it, and so on. Even the same. So like, I've always had a set of nails ever since I came out. It's something that is comfortable for me. I don't get nails because I'm trans, but I wouldn't have had nails before that. But what I do is when I get nails done, is I always have them styled with a story. And the stories more often than not have something to do with either being trans, being part of the 2S LGBTQI+ community, or if there's, some homage or something of a memory or a landmark or a milestone or an anniversary, all of those things related in some way, shape, or form to being trans, even if it's an extension of having an homage to people who are important to me during my transition, right? I'm reaching, but it's still in that sort of universe of the point. So anyway, a good example is this. So these nails, I just got done yesterday, as a matter of fact, as of the day of this taping, and you'll see that they are themed with blue, pink, and white. The reason for that is on September 24th, 2022 is going to be the 2-year anniversary that I went socially full-time as a trans woman. So that's something that I might treat myself, not because I'm trans though, but because I'm a woman. And I like it. It makes me feel good. I feel happy when I have my nails. Right? There's something nice and tactile, and it's just part of the glam that I enjoy. This is probably the closest thing that I would consider as a treat, but it's also just become such a regular part of, you know, definitely not my day-to-day, but I otherwise I don't look at something and be like, I deserve this because I'm trans, or I'm trans, therefore I need this now, or anything along those lines. Definitely not. How did you prepare to prove real-life experience for your transition? I remember when I wrote this down, I told myself that I'm going to try to understand the grammar of that. Then, not gonna lie, I'm still a little lost on it right now. How did you prepare to prove real-life experience for your transition? I think the way that this question is being meant to be framed is, how did I just prepare to go socially full-time? And if not, that's still how I'm going to answer it. So when I started transitioning, I entered trans healthcare in October of 2019. I was very clear when I entered trans healthcare that I didn't want anything until I had laser hair removal and voice training done. The reasons why I wanted to do that before I worried about anything else in terms of a medical transition or anything like that is if for any reason that I needed to pump the brakes on transitioning, for whatever reason I wouldn't have known, realistically, I hated shaving anyway, so whoop-de-doo. And when it comes to voice training, it's literally in the words, it's training, right? And so, you know, you can go ahead and adapt and learn and so on and so on. It just becomes a skill set, really, more than anything else. At least that's what was in my head. I came out incredibly abruptly on my birthday on June 7th in 2020, shortly after George Floyd's murder. And I know I've explained that before, so I'm going to put a link to that here. But because of that, that completely changed how I imagined coming out. Now also remember that I started taking HRT, like my prescription, in February of 2020. February 1st, 2020 was when I took my first pills. COVID also kicked in the area in and around that same time, and work from home pretty much got enforced kind of across the board in Manitoba about a month after that. So there's a lot of circumstances that really kind of shifted how I was expecting to go into a transition as opposed to what actually happened. As in October of 2019, I was expecting to just kind of like going back to that thing I was talking about last week about, you know, being visibly trans or, you know, doing anything that would be identifiable or noticeable or so on. And remember, I mentioned last week's episode, so definitely take a look at a chapter in there. I think that actually might have been the second question thinking of it, so please check that out while it's in the description. The battle plan that I had was to, you know, just kind of keep working in the corner office and just be an angry potato, but just, you know, still have my own little, plan on the side of, okay, here's how I'm learning how to speak in a different tone or whatever. And then also, like I said, you know, just laser away and shave less and whatever. And then after I knew that I was comfortable with all that, then I would work on going socially full-time along with medical transition and so on and so on. So as I mentioned, it came out super abruptly in summer of last year, which changed everything. And what ended up happening was to get ready to go socially full-time was more like, okay, I came out. I guess it's happening now. That really helped a lot when it came to how to prepare for that, because I put myself pretty much into a situation I wasn't prepared for at all, but I knew that if I was going to advocate about social justice and so on, I had to do it authentically. So there were just a lot of circumstances in life where I just had to do it. And because I had to do it, everything that came along with it was just stuff I had to do. But that's it, right? You know, I thought that I had to do, you know, voice training. You know, I thought that I had to do this. I thought I had to do that. I thought. So all I ended up doing is after I came out, I knew that, okay, I'm out. I have to go socially full-time eventually. And so with that, you know, I just got stuff organized. I, you know, fixed up my wardrobe. I made sure to get all the kind of the basic necessities and essentials so that when it was ready to go socially full time, I had everything I needed. And then I just lived. And I think that's kind of how to really enunciate everything and put a punctuation mark on all of it. I just lived. And I don't know how to leave that on a poetic note. I prepared by finally allowing myself to live. So let's wrap up on that note. This was a really fun, diverse series, and I know I pointed to a lot of previous episodes, so please take a look in the description for those, and I really hope you enjoy the content of those episodes as well. If you enjoyed this one, make sure to please hit like, make sure to share this with people who are important to you, that you want to hear this as well, and please make sure to subscribe too if you have not yet, so you can just stay up to speed with new episodes as they come out, and also just, if you want to take a look at previous episodes as I was alluding to, follow the playlist and so on and so on and so on. So like, share, subscribe. Totally appreciate you for doing that. In the description as well is a link to a campaign hosted by Numode, and what that is a call to action to hold businesses and companies and organizations accountable to make sure they optimize their corporate social responsibility, is a really good way to put it, so that the 2S LGBTQIA+ community in the neighborhoods that these places operate in feel supported, right? And also can in return help support those organizations too, and create a kind of a mutual benefit, especially when those CSRs are recognized and optimized. So please make sure to do that. It takes about 14 seconds. Name, email address, postal code, hit send, get sent to the elected officials in the area of that postal code, and including the mayors of Winnipeg and Toronto. I'm gonna wrap this one up. I had a lot of fun with this episode. I hope you did too. And so for now, let's call this one a night or a day or a midday, whatever. So you have a great rest of your night. Have a great rest of your week, as I always love to say. And I'll talk to you later.